This is Johnny and Jose with TigerBomb MMA, and tonight we'll be going over UFC Fight Night Santos versus Ankalaev, going over the entire card, giving you thoughts, predictions, possible parlays. We'll get started after I kind of admit something. Last week, which would have been Green versus Makhachev, I actually had a perfect 10 out of 10 card. So every fighter I picked won, but I still lost 7 units because I'm a fucking idiot and I don't know how to bet. I got a little overboard with, I guess, Petrosian and Rodriguez not going the distance, and I put a lot of stock on Nunes by knockout. I thought she was going to knock out Pascal. So I put too much money on those particular two, and I fucked myself because, whatever. But lesson learned. It was just like a nasty sting, like, oh, please, like, don't go fucking 10 out of 10 and still not make any money. And that's what happened. So, oh shit, that sucks. So I'm going to try to recover from that. I made a lot of smarter bets this week. I'm not touching any props. I got a little too cocky with the props, so I'm going to avoid those props for a while. So FYI, so you can shit on me on the comment section. But we'll get started with the first fight of the night. At what weight class is this? I always forget what these ladies are at. Flyweight. Sabina Mazo versus Miranda Maverick. And currently the odds have it in favor of, I checked it earlier, it was Maverick. Holy shit. Minus 220 for Maverick. Come back on Sabina Mazo is a plus 230. With women's MMA, both of these ladies are on a 2-fight losing streak. Not really much to say about these two. Sabina Mazo, she's not very active. She does hit hard. She has a very nice high kick, which kind of gets her out of trouble in some of her fights, especially ones that she's losing. Like Justine Quiche was beating her ass. She throws a high kick, ends up getting a submission due to her rocking her. And then she's lost to Alexis Davis, cashed that plus 220 on her. And then she lost to Maria Agapova, where Agapova looked fantastic. Like Sabina Mazo looked completely a step behind, stick in the mud, if you will. And for Miranda Maverick, I think she's had it rough. I think she's the better fighter. She's a rifle favorite. The only concern that I have with this one is that she's going to be significantly shorter. She's 5'3" compared to the 5'7" of Mazo. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Miranda Maverick, her last fights were kind of a fucky decision to Macy Barber, where I thought she won, and no shame in losing to Erin Blanchfield. I honestly thought Erin Blanchfield was a nobody. I'm like, no, man, she's not that great, but Jesus Christ, her grappling is absolutely serious. And she's kind of put me in my place, losing to Erin Blanchfield like that. There's no shame in that. I think Maverick's going to be the more active fighter. She's going to be pursuing takedowns. She's going to be the smarter fighter. She's a very smart girl. I'll go with Maverick to win this one by a decision. Wouldn't be surprised if she pulls out a submission, knowing that she's like 0-2 in her last two. She needs something spectacular. So safely, I'll go with decision for Maverick.
Yeah, same here. I think the height difference, her being a little bit closer to the ground is going to help her in this fight. I think she's going to duck under, any strikes of Mazo and just take it to the ground. For Mazo, it just did not look good losing to Alexis Davis and then losing to what could possibly be a resurging Agapova. So...
Yeah, we'll see tonight how she does, because we're recording this actually day. I said night earlier, day of the Covington versus Masvidal. So I'm interested to see how she turns out.
Yeah, because I saw the what do you call that shit? It was either the embedded. I'm pretty sure it was the embedded where they were signing the posters, and then Masvidal was signing on Colby's face.
You can't do that.
Yeah, the guy's like, I don't think you could do that. He's like, why not? He's
it's
like,
a Dominic Cruz rule. Dominic Cruz did that shit, and you're not allowed.
No, it was what's his name? Faber that did that on Dominic Cruz's face.
Oh, you should know. It was Cruz that did it on Faber's face, because he wasn't on the poster, if I recall correctly. See, we're historians of MMA. We remember this shit.
Oh shit! I thought it was the reverse.
Yeah, he felt disrespected, so he started writing on Faber's cut.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And so he's like, "What can I do that? Really?" He's like, "Okay."
I can't believe Masvidal got punked by that intern.
Yeah.
Like, then, just don't do it again, please.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll sign by his face." But as he was signing, Agapova was right next to him, and her mouth was watering. She's like, "Hey," she's like, "You can sign on my face." Um. Anyway, so I think Agapova is going to do fine tonight, probably. As long as she just keeps the dick sucking to a minimum before the fight, she should be fine. She should use that to celebrate after the fight. But yeah, Sabina Mazo, I think she's on her way out of the UFC. I don't think she's UFC caliber. Miranda Maverick, at least she tries a little bit more.
Mhm.
Well, like you mentioned, they're both on a 2-fight losing streak. But Miranda Maverick didn't lose to Alexis Davis, so I'll take her just because of that. I'm taking Miranda Maverick by decision.
Right, next bout, also at flyweight women's MMA, we've got JJ Aldrich versus Jillian Robertson, and currently the odds have it in favor of Robertson, -155. Come back on Aldrich is a +135. I don't really have much to say about this one. It's a 50-50 matchup, literally striker versus grappler. I rewatched some tape on both ladies. Aldrich's striking is pretty damn solid. Best aspect. Last she fought, what was it? Demopoulos. She fought Demopoulos. She looked fantastic, right? She looked great stuffing takedowns, but she fought a much smaller girl. She went to a split decision with Courtney Casey, mostly a striking battle. And Courtney Casey can't stuff a fucking takedown. Funny enough, she lost to Sabina Mazo by split. So it is primarily the striking of JJ Aldrich you have to look out. Very crisp boxing. I think Taekwondo background, if I remember correctly, some sort of kicking background. Jillian Robertson, on the other hand, she has to get takedowns. That's realm is on the ground. She's very good on the ground. Like I've shit her on her in the past. I faded her in the past. And if she gets it to her realm, she's pretty solid on there. She's a black belt. The only concern I have is the takedowns. Her takedowns are kind of shit, but if she does get a takedown, you might be fucked. So when I'm watching the Priscilla Cachoeira fight, she could not get a takedown in the first, say, half a round, and it looked pretty shitty. She was getting busted up by Cachoeira, for fuck's sake. She hits hard and all, but she's not very skilled. It's just so tough. It's a 50-50 matchup. I think, obviously, if Robertson gets it to the ground, she is going to have a lot of success down there, beating up JJ Aldrich, maybe not submitting her early, but maybe softening her up for a later submission. JJ Aldrich, man, this one's really tough because, like, really, if Jillian can't get a takedown, she's going to get battered on the feet because that's how she loses fights. She gets beat up if she cannot get that takedown. Aldrich has to be aggressive, but I don't see her being that aggressive. She's not one of these girls who's going out there to like knock her out. Like who knocked her out? Macy Barber knocked her out. Like she's going to go out there and beat her ass. It's honestly, I don't like this fight at all. I have to go with Robertson. I'm already considering that a loss on my overall record because like she is not trustworthy. But if she gets it to the ground, I think she has the most success. JJ Aldrich, she could win the decision on the feet, but I don't think she'll knock out Jillian Robertson. And if Jillian Robertson's not knocked out, she will continuously try to get you to the ground, which can make it interesting. So I think she will get a takedown. We'll see, but I'll go with Robertson reluctantly by decision because, like, yeah, I don't like this. It's not good.
Yeah, I think JJ Aldrich. I think this fight is heavily dependent on JJ Aldrich's takedown defense. If she can stuff Robertson's takedowns in the first 2 rounds, I think she'll have enough to get the decision. 2-1 maybe. But if she can only stuff them for like half a round or even the first round, and then if they go into the second round and she's already tired and Robertson gets her down, I think she'll probably submit her in the second. So I'll take. I don't see Aldrich as like a super athletic, like 3-round, high cardio fighter. So I'm going to take Robertson with a second round rear naked choke. I think she'll, wear her out a little bit in the first round. And in the second round, Aldrich will just have nothing to offer, and then she'll just take her back and choke her out. And we'll hear, "Choke me, daddy," and then she'll tap out a little bit.
Moving on to welterweight, we've got pretty banger of a matchup: Matthew Semelsberger versus AJ Fletcher, and the odds currently have it in favor of Semelsberger minus 250. Comeback on Fletcher is a plus 210. I think the odds on this one, I don't know how to feel about them. Like, I think they might be accurate, but I think it should be lined a bit closer based on Fletcher himself. I think he's a pretty solid competitor. He is very undersized, I guess, height wise and reach wise for welterweight, but he's a pretty jack dude. He's 25 years old. He's 5'10 compared to the 6'1 of Semelsberger, 67-inch reach compared to the 75 of Semelsberger. He's a perfect 9-0, and the guy's very exciting. He's very fun to watch. Went back and watched tape on him. His Contender Series fight where he got the flying knee that got him into the UFC. I didn't get a chance to see it live, but I went back and rewatched it. And there's a lot to like about this guy, but in that particular fight, if you're just judging this guy off of that fight, he left a lot of openings there to get hit and countered. He didn't look all that great. It wasn't his overall best performance, but that flying knee just erased everything, because that's the kind of guy this fighter is. He's very not necessarily reckless. I don't want to say that. He allows himself to essentially be countered. He leaves himself open for shots there, but he spins. He's got excellent takedowns. He's very explosive. I think I wrote down that he has a GSP wrestling background, meaning he has zero wrestling background, but he's just really good at it. Like, his body is just set for it. I think both of these guys were former college football players that are now fighting. The thing about Fletcher is that he is hittable, but I think he's a tough, pretty well-rounded guy with good cardio. He's willing to throw spinning shit, good low kicks. So I think it's a lot closer on, I guess, not necessarily on paper. On paper, it looks like Semelsberger, with the experience that he has, he's 9-3, fought the way better competition. Heavy hands, very heavy hands. I think obviously the lines have to go to Semelsberger, but I think it should be a lot lined closer than that. Semelsberger, on the other hand, what's really to say about him? He hits incredibly hard. He's a very tough guy. Fought very good competition. His fight with Chaos Williams was actually a good eye opener to show how good he is, because he was able to counter. He has a piston for a right hand. He's got a good chin, very tough, great counters. He's got a really nice 1-2, and we've seen him knock dudes out in like seconds of the fight. He knocked out Jason Witt immediately, and he knocked out Martin Sano very, very easily. Like, I was worried because I had Semelsberger to win that one first round, and I'm like, oh man, I hope to God Sano's not that tough. He knocks him out immediately after. It's a tough one, really, because if AJ Fletcher mixes in the takedowns, it could be a lot closer going into like the second and the third, or Matthew Semelsberger just catches AJ Fletcher. I think Fletcher, he's going to get knocked out one day. He reminds me a lot of Justin Gaethje in a way, just not as wild. But this one is tough, man. I will go with Semelsberger because I think he deserves that respect. I think he's going to knock out the newcomer. But honestly, I would not be surprised, and I hate saying that shit, if Fletcher wins this one. If you will take Semelsberger, I would say go by maybe a TKO knockout. Other than that, I'd probably stay away from it and just enjoy the violence. But I'll go with Semelsberger to win by I'll say a second round TKO. I think first round's going to be very entertaining.
So I was going to ask, does AJ Fletcher remind you of Gaethje? Because is it the cross eyes or is it the shit-eating grin?
Both, and the fact that I guess they're both kind of blonde, and you have to see him fight. Like, once you see him fight, like, that's a little Gaethje. He's a wrestler, and he kind of throws with a lot of power.
Huh. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think this matchup favors Semelsberger. I think the odds are a little off. Yeah, they should definitely be in like the 100s, I think. Like minus 120 for Semelsberger and plus 110 for Fletcher. Because, yeah, Semelsberger has more UFC experience, but I wouldn't say a ton more. He has a few, he has, what, 4 fights, 4 more fights than him in the actual UFC, not including the Contender Series and whatnot.
Yeah, it's just more level of competition, really.
Yeah, and you do have a point. The takedowns, I think, are going to play a factor here. So Semelsberger's damn it, Matt's.
Semelsberger.
Yeah, man, I don't want to, I don't want to hurt myself. Matt, I'll just call him Matt S. Uh, Matt's takedown defense is going to play a big part here. If he can hope, if Fletcher's going to have a takedown heavy, grapple heavy game plan, and if Matt can maybe hold him off to maybe even one takedown per round, and and that one takedown, if he can get immediately back up, if he doesn't just turtle it up, I think that'll work in his favor, and it'll minimize the both the effectiveness as well as how the takedown is scored. It's it'll hopefully with the judges not hopefully. It's not like I'm cheering for him. I could give a shit who wins this fight. But with the it will work in his favor with the judges not counting the takedown as like, oh shit, one takedown, he wins the fight or wins the round or whatever. So I think that'll play a big factor if AJ Fletcher, doesn't just want to spar with him or whatever. I think Semelsberger will get the decision here if I think it's his fight to lose, basically. So if he takes it easy on Fletcher or if he underestimates him and decides, hey, it's like you're not worth my time, and then Fletcher comes in and like just beats the shit out of him on both on the feet and on the ground, and it's like, oh, Semelsberger's a dumbass, but who knows? So I'll say it's up to him whether what kind of fight he wants to make this, him and his team, that is. But I think all in all, based on his record, his performances, I think he'll get the decision here. I think he'll get at least 2 rounds. I think this is going to go the distance. I think neither guy can knock the other out, nor is neither guy submitting the other. So I'll say Semelsberger gets at least 2 rounds. I think he'll get more than a round and a half to justify getting the second round. I think he'll get the first 2 rounds, and then I don't know, depending on what his cardio is like, he might give up maybe a takedown or 2 in the third round. So yeah, not to go on too much because there's not too much more to say. So I'll take Semelsberger by decision, or at the very least split decision.
And moving on to a featherweight matchup, we've got Damon the Leech Jackson versus Kamuela the Jawaian Kirk. Took me forever to find out what the Jawaian meant. I guess he's mixing Jamaican and Hawaiian. That's all I know. But currently the odds have it in favor of Kamuela Kirk, minus 155. Comeback on Jackson is a plus 135. This one's interesting because we've got the relentless wrestler that is Damon Jackson. Despite him being knocked out a couple different times, he's pretty damn tough. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, relentless wrestler. His striking is actually pretty damn sloppy, but very surprisingly effective. And he has to grind down Kamuela Kirk. Kamuela Kirk, he is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got very improved striking. His fight with Amir Khani, where he took it on very short notice, he apparently won that one by a 30-27 and 2 29-28, which the 29-28 I could agree with, but the 30-27, I thought that was a little extreme. I don't know if those judges will be here with Damon Jackson and Kamuela Kirk. If they are, you have to lean Kamuela Kirk. It was a strange fight because I actually had Amir Khani to win that one, and I thought he could have edged it, maybe just based on one of the judges or so, 2 of the judges, because I gave him the round number 1 and maybe possibly round number 3. And I don't want to dive too much into it, but I think Kamuela has a better argument to have won that fight, but not 30-27. The guy's pretty damn good on the ground. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. His fight with Billy Q on the Contender Series, it showed how good he can be if he doesn't gas out. He was able to completely dominate Billy Q in the first round. Billy Q melted him in round number 2 and 3, and his cardio has improved. I've seen this guy in the LFA. He actually completely starched the guy. Not necessarily starched him, sorry, because the guy had some decent comebacks on the ground. He was going for arm bars. What was his name? His name was Daniel Swain. And Daniel Swain, in that fight, he actually retired. To my knowledge, he retired on the actual stool. And by retired, I mean he literally told his coach, I can't do this anymore. I'm retiring. And he did not get off the stool. And of course, that's lower level competition. I think, honestly, this one's a lot closer, in my opinion, because if Damon Jackson can just completely grapple fuck Kamwela Kirk, I know Kamwela Kirk's takedown defense has improved. His striking is better. I just don't think he has the type of firepower to really hurt Damon Jackson. I think he can win a decision or possibly even TKO Damon Jackson in the third after tiring him out with body shots, knees to the body, and maybe just catching him with a really nice right hook. It's just kind of tough for me. I don't have a whole ton of confidence in Kamwela Kirk, because I think if he tries to play the jiu-jitsu game like black belts do, he gets taken down and he'll be comfortable, he can lose that decision just by being on bottom. He's very sneaky on the ground. I'm certain he can submit Damon Jackson, create the scrambles. What's his name? Charles Rosa was having some good scrambles with Damon Jackson on the ground, but even Damon was able to hold him down. I think Kamwela Kirk is more athletic black belt on the ground, more active on the bottom. It's going to be fun to watch. There are going to be some crazy scrambles, I think. I'll lean Kamwela Kirk just because I cannot favor Damon Jackson with a guy who's good on the ground and good on the feet. Damon, he has to wrestle for his life, which I think he can do, but I'll go with Kirk to win this one. I'll say maybe third round knockout or submission. I think he'll catch Damon Jackson slipping, and then he'll finish him in the third round. So I'll go third round, Kamwela Kirk by finish.
I'm actually going to go with Damon Jackson on this one. I'm going to go with the underdog. I don't know, man. I think he's better, than most people think. Yeah, he did get starched by Topuria, but I'm very high on Ilia Topuria, man. I think in the next few years he's going to become not a household name, but he's going to become pretty well known. He's not going to have the type of hype behind him that what the fuck is that guy with the rat lip?
Khamzat?
Yeah, Khamzat. Khamzat has.
Just remembered Cumshot Chimaev. Who would name their kid Cumshot? That's so rude.
Yeah, but I think Topuria, very high on that guy Topuria. But that isn't to discount Damon Jackson. I think he's, decent fighter. I'll go with him in this fight, even though I think
Kamwela.
Yeah, the Jawaiian. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Even though I think he is, fairly tough. But I'm not putting too much stock in his fight against Amir Khani, just because Amir Khani, what's an easy way to say this? Yeah, sure, he might get all the blondes in Finland, but he's not exactly a killer, in the octagon. Man, those are some pretty hot blondes he has in that picture. I wonder if, wonder how much they got paid, but yeah, Finland has some pretty hot blondes apparently. Yeah, I'm not putting too much stock in Kamwela Kirk. I think Damon Jackson has, he's a little bit older. He's in his 30s, but I think for the featherweight division, he's not exactly over the hill yet. I think he's got some stuff in. He's got a bit left in the tank, and I actually wouldn't put him past submitting Kamwela Kirk. Maybe with a rear naked choke in the second. So I'm going to go with Damon Jackson I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here. Yeah, it's just a gut feeling I have. I might be wrong. Probably I'm wrong, but I think
I
Damon.
completely understand. I know where you're
I
coming from.
I think Damon Jackson gets the rear naked um, in the second round against Kamala Kirk. I think he's gonna upset. I think the odds are off. And I think they should be favoring Damon Jackson, as a matter of fact. But so I'm just going with that. I'm not gonna, go too much into it. It's just something, and it's like when you see a hobo walking down the street, kind of funny. It's like, oh man, where's my knife, sort of thing. It's like a gut feeling.
Moving on to a light heavyweight bout between Tafon Nchukwi versus Azamat Murzakanov. And currently the odds have it in favor of Murzakanov, minus
Azamat.
150. Yeah, Azamat Murzakanov. Tafon Nchukwi comes back at a plus 130. I was looking at those odds and thinking about this fight, and I'm just like, oh, what the fuck? Why is he not that much of a favorite? Azamat, that is. But I don't know. Well, let's get breaking down Nchukwi. Nchukwi, strong power striker, hits hard. He's got pretty decent cardio for being a big, heavy, muscular guy at light heavyweight. Trains with Team Lloyd Irvin. He's a lifelong martial artist type of dude. He's 6-1. Man, what's funny about the fight with Jung Young Park is that I went back and rewatched it, and for whatever reason, I remember that being a complete grapple fuck from Park, and it wasn't that. It was just more so that the striking was kind of even, and then in the third round, the grappling completely took over, and Park just beat the crap out of Nchukwi. It cut him up pretty bad in the third round. Nchukwi's got some pretty decent takedown defense. He's a strong guy, like he's very, very strong. And the thing about him is that he's very slow and very hittable, despite being such a really tank of a man. Azamat, not really much to say about him. He's 10-0. He's 35 years old, so he's much older. He's going to be shorter here as well. He's 5'10 compared to the 6 foot of Nchukwi. He's going to have a 6-inch reach disadvantage. I don't think that's going to matter. I think Azamat, the dude is a fucking savage. Like, I know he's older, but he has fought in open weight competitions. He fought, what's his name, Gito Sente, who's fucking huge. He's able to beat him. The guy, he was supposed to fight a couple different dudes in the UFC. I think one of them was that guy who just lost to Arlovsky, whose name I cannot remember right now, which I will look up as I keep talking. And his name was Jared Vandera, that is. And then he was supposed to fight Felipe Lins, Marcin Prachnio. He was supposed to fight a bunch of dudes, and they all canceled out. And let me see, was it because Prachnio withdrew, Vandera withdrew, and of course Lins withdrew? So a lot of people are withdrawing from fighting this guy, and Tafon has the balls to fight him. The guy has a lot of power in his hands. He's got the wrestling background. I don't see Tafon knocking him out. Tafon hits hard, but I don't think he has a ton of power. Like, I don't think he has like that death touch that like a Trevin Jones has. He could just batter you up. And I think in this particular fight, I think Azamat has the power advantage. He's going to have the wrestling advantage. I don't think he's going to fear standing with Tafon, and Tafon being so, I guess, new to the game. Again, he's only got 7 fights, and the guys he's been fighting aren't really. I mean, I'll just say this: if Azamat were to fight guys like Jamie Pickett and Mike Rodriguez and even Jung Young Park, he'd be 13-0 right now. I'll go with Azamat to win this one. I think he's going to finish Nchukwi. I think he's going to batter him on the ground. I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks him out on the feet, but I'll go with Azamat to win this one. I'll say second round knockout. I think I listed it on my Tapology as first round, but I'll give Tafon some credit on here. I think his takedown defense is going to hold up for a bit, and then eventually Azamat's just going to completely steamroll him. So I'll go with Azamat at plus 150. It's a fucking steal. So Azamat by TKO in round number 2.
Yeah, that's exactly my thought. I think Tafon's going to have one round of, explosiveness or just overall cardio. And then in the second round, Azamat, he's going to be able to take him down at will. And I think he's going to mount him like a pony. He's going to ride that ass and then just start raining down Russian missiles on that Cameroonian ass. And then he's gonna. That's it. That's all I have to say. Because I'm taking Azamat by second round TKO as well. Too soon?
Nope, you're good. Next bout, let's just move on. This one,
Yeah.
I hate this fucking matchup. We got Cody Brundage versus Dalcha Lungiambula taking place at middleweight. I hated this matchup. I'm like, why would they do this to me? I don't want to break this one down. But currently the odds are pretty even, minus 124. Dalcha champion, come back on Cody Brundage is a plus 100. This one, to me, it's a very, very close 50-50 matchup, depending on what each guy does. Cody Brundage, he's very young in the game. He's 6-2, great wrestling background, but that doesn't really matter when you get full mount on William Knight and then he reverses you and knocks you out with elbows. Ugh. And then he has a win over, his last win was over Joseph. I can't even pronounce the last name. He came into the UFC on short notice to fight Nick Maximov. And I thought he had a chance to beat Nick based off of his wrestling background. It got pretty close in there. It's just that he's not very, very skilled. I mean, he's just a really big guy, 6 foot, 72-inch reach compared to the 5'8" of Dalchuk, 76-inch reach. Dalchuk's going to have the power advantage, and he's got the judo sambo type of wrestling, the grappling. But he gets tired. His last fight was against Marc-Andre Barriault, which was close. His cardio looked like it held up. It was mostly a striking battle. Oh man, like, am I really going to trust Cody Brundage to out-grapple Dalcha or not to get knocked out by Dalcha? Or am I going to trust Dalcha not to get tired in like the second round and Cody takes over by wrestling him down? I think both of these guys need a win. I just don't know if Cody Brundage is UFC caliber right now. He reminds me a lot of Jared Vandera, where he might be able to beat a bunch of guys, maybe even win a contract on the Contender Series by beating a guy that doesn't belong himself, and then come into the UFC and not perform very well. And this is a chance for him to actually get a decent name on his record and progress his overall MMA record itself and look like he belongs in the UFC. I just don't trust him to do that. Dalcha, on the other hand, he's fought some pretty good competition. Only 2 losses in the UFC. Lost to Magomed Ankalaev, who's headlining the card, and then Marc-Andre Barriault, who, despite him getting knocked out, he's a very solid fighter. I'll go with Dalcha to win this one, second round knockout. Zero confidence in either of these guys. I just have to make a prediction. I think the likelihood of Dalcha maybe stuffing takedowns is pretty high, and then just punishing Cody. Him being the shorter guy, Cody's gonna have to reach for the legs. I don't really know how good Cody's like trips are or body waist takedowns are. If that's the case, I think the judo background of Dalcha is going to really come into play and help out. I'll go with Dalcha. I think skill wise, he's better. Power wise, he's better. Lung capacity wise, funny enough that his name starts with the word lung. I think it's not that great, but I'll go with him he has to get a knockout. So I'll go with a second round TKO knockout.
Yeah, I think he's gonna bring that it's not Congo-ish power. I think it's Congolese power, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's gonna bring that Congolese power to this. Funny enough, I think I was confusing Dalcha and Tafon, not because they're both black, but both, because of their power. I was confusing which one had the power, and I remembered. Oh yeah, it's Dalcha that has, because his name is Champion, or his nickname Champion or whatnot. But yeah, I think he's got the power, although he is 2-2 in the UFC, which is worth noting. The 2 guys that he did lose to, Ankalaev, definitely a contender. I think I foresee, well, anyway, I'll get into Ankalaev. I think he's really, really good. But, losing to, or rather his last win being against Marcus Perez back in 2020, doesn't really say much for Dalcha. So I'm not really confident in, saying, oh yeah, he's going to beat the shit out of Cody Brundage. But then again, excuse me. Then again, Cody Brundage, losing to William Knight and Nick Maximoff in his last, losing to William Knight, I should say, in the Contender Series, and then Nick Maximoff in his last fight. If those who don't recall, Nick Maximoff is part of the, is it Nick or Nate Diaz? Yeah, it's Nick Diaz army.
Nate Diaz, actually.
No, he's part of the it's the Nick Diaz army. Nate Diaz is also a soldier of the Nick Diaz army. Anyway, he beat Cody Brundage. I expected Cody Brundage to beat the shit out of Nick Maximoff. He didn't. Pretty disappointing. He hasn't fought since. So I think this is a coin flip fight. I think they're both pretty low level. But I'm gonna give it to Dalcha just because I think Cody's gonna find a way to fuck this up for himself.
Sounds right.
And I think Dalcha's gonna. How do I best put this? His punch is gonna aim up, so I think he's gonna be able to push off a little bit more. Which is going to add, to his sort of, I guess to an extent, kind of a Roy Nelson-esque punch, or I should say, his strikes are going to resemble that of Roy Nelson, in that he's going to have to reach up and maybe over, Cody's defense, and I think that's going to add, a little bit more power, to Dalcha's strikes. And so I'll take Dalcha by third round TKO because of that.
Yeah, let's move on. This is taking too much with these two guys.
Yeah.
Next bout taking place at bantamweight. We've got Trevin 5-Star Jones versus Havid, the Snow Leopard Basharat. Interesting bout at 135. Currently, the odds have it in favor of Basharat. Minus 150 comeback on Jones is a plus 130. Interesting because anytime Jones is an underdog, he ends up winning by knockout. Will this happen here? Who the fuck knows? I'll start with Jones because Jones, he's very hard to gauge because he comes into the UFC and he knocks out Timur Valiev after getting his ass beat for the, I think, first round or so, round and a half. Then he knocks out Mario Bautista. So he's beating guys, frankly, he shouldn't be beating based off of his record and his skill set. Better guys than him, I would say. And then he fights Sayakub Bik Kakramanov, and he comes in on short notice and finishes Trevin Jones. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? How good are you, Trevin Jones? Are you losing when you're a favorite and just cashing out as a dog? He's really, really difficult to gauge because his striking, I mean, he has power, man. He has that death touch. He can knock anyone out. It's just he has to throw more. He's very opportunistic with his counters. He's allegedly really good on the ground, but he wasn't really able to do anything with Kakramanov on the ground. He got submitted by Kakramanov. He gasses out. Like, I don't know what his game plan is going to be against Basharat because Basharat's a very solid, talented striker. And I think he's going to get completely outstruck on this one by Basharat. And I don't know, man. I think Trevin Jones absolutely needs a knockout, and I think he can get one. I think he absolutely can get a knockout against Basharat. Basharat, I'll talk about him, but he leaves himself a bit exposed with his chin in the air. Other than that, he's got a 100% finish rate. Havid Basharat, that is. He's got a Taekwondo background. He's a solid grappler, surprisingly. I think he mentioned that he was training a bit with Jake Shields, and he's an interesting character to me because I can't really put my finger on it, but he seems very complete as a fighter, but I'm just not certain how good he is. What I am certain about is how good his movement is and how good his striking is on the feet, his cardio, his angles. When beating up that dude in the Contender Series, what was his name? Oran Kalion. He completely destroyed him. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't base my opinion on him beating up a fucking scrub, a guy who's been beating a bunch of cans. And then I look at Basharat's record, and his record's not all that great either. I don't think that really matters in this case, because when you see a guy how talented he is, he's going to obviously be beating up cans, and that's not his fault. Last time I said that about somebody, it was that dude, Dennis Bondar. Like, it's not his fault that he's beating up cans, and he gets completely destroyed in a spot that he should have won. So I'm afraid of that happening again. But just looking at his skill set, his striking is very fluid on the feet. Very, I don't want to say Dominic Cruz-esque with the movement, but he does move a lot. His ground and pound when he was beating the shit out of Kalon was very impressive on the first round. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy's really good on the ground. And I'm like, I don't even know what level of belt he is in grappling. It's one of those things I kept thinking, like, this guy looks like he might get his ass completely handed to him on the mats when he's training, but when he is actually live and performing with punches and everything, he's fantastic. Like, he might be black belt level quality on the ground, especially when, like, the way he passes guard, gets the ground and pound knee on belly and stuff. It's like he's pretty good. Like, he's very naturally talented. And again, I'm not certain what his level in jiu-jitsu is. The thing about him, he leaves his chin a bit high. I think the movement's really going to stifle Trevin Jones. I think Basharat's a very smart guy. I think he's very comfortable wherever the fight goes. Trevin, I don't know, man. I can't trust him. I am afraid of that curse of him being an underdog and getting a knockout, but I'll go with Basharat on this one. I just like what I see from him. I think he's going to make the right reads in that fight, use his length, and just completely dominate Trevin Jones on the feet. And then if it gets to the ground, I think he's got enough down there to cause some damage. So I'll go with Basharat to win this one. I think he gets a decision win. I don't think he'll finish Jones. I think it'll be too risky for him to go in for the finish, knowing that Jones has like that nuclear option. So he'll just stay on the outside and batter him and get a decision win.
I'm just gonna flip a coin here. I'll take Trevin Jones by decision.
Okay. Decision? You think he'll win a decision with his gas tank?
Yeah. Well, I just flipped the coin, so probably.
All right, let's move on. This next fight is actually a lot more complicated than I thought it would be, but taking place at bantamweight, Guido Ninja Canetti versus Chris Montinho. And the odds currently have it in favor of, where did they go? They have it in favor of Montinho minus 140. Comeback on Canetti is a plus 120. And when looking at this fight, I'm like, I think Canetti can actually knock out Montinho. He's been knocked out before. Like, say what you want about his performance with Sean O'Malley. I mean, he was a fucking punching bag. He's the greatest punching bag of all time. He kept going forward and creating spots where O'Malley had to retaliate, and he got hit a little bit. Dude's pretty damn fucking tough. He goes forward every single time. It's just that the firepower of Canetti, even at that age, how old is he? 42? Yeah, 42 years old. He still hits really hard, man. I know he's on a 3-fight losing streak. I don't know how he got this fight after being, 1-3 in his last 4. And the fight with Mana Martinez was interesting. It went to a split decision. You see the power still there. You see he hits hard. Despite the age, man. I don't know if he's on some shit, but I'd like to see how he looks on the scale. The thing about it, though, is that Guido's known to gas out. He throws a lot of power, a lot of low, hard inside leg kicks, outside leg kicks. And I think for him, he has to get a knockout or bust, because I don't think he can get a decision, because if he cannot knock out Chris Montinho, the greatest quality about this kid is that he relentlessly moves forward regardless of how hard you hit him. And I know the O'Malley fight, it looked like a complete blowout, because he should not have been in there with Sean O'Malley. A guy like Guido Canetti, I think he's going to look like a fucking star. Like, oh, this guy's moving forward, eating a punch, and then just completely like throwing 15 more punches at Guido. He's going to make Guido very uncomfortable. And I think that forward pressure is something to really consider. On top of that, You have to remember that this guy worked a full-time job before his fight with Sean O'Malley. He quit his job, and then on top of that, he won a shit ton of money for a performance bonus. And with that money, more money equals more training equals more skill. I think he's going to have more improvements this fight. I think him as a solid fighter himself, just the basis of him, very tough guy, moves forward, good grappling. I think what was, damn it, I went a little stupid there. What I read was that after that ass whooping from O'Malley, the very next day he was training his jiu-jitsu class. So I'm like, this guy's very motivated in there, and I think he's going to win this fight by a decision. Also, listening to Chris Montinho, I'm like, this dude sounds so fucking familiar. What is he? Who does he remind me of? And I'm like, he sounds a lot like Beneil Dariush. So compare Beneil Dariush and Chris Montinho. I'm like, what the fuck? They could be related to each other. But I'll go with the grimy Chris Montinho to win this one by a decision. I think he's going to completely batter Guido. First round's going to be very dicey. He's got to be very, very technically sound with his defense and just not move as forward as he normally would, and then just completely put on the gas tank, put on the, I guess, the gas pedal, I should say, and gas out Guido Canetti, and he'll win this one by a decision. It'll be a very entertaining fight, but I'll go with Montinho by a decision.
Yeah, I'm going with Montinho as well, but I'm going to take him by second round TKO. I think Guido at 42 years old, calling himself an Argentinian ninja, I think they've lowered the bar in Argentina for ninjas. If this guy's in their ranks, yeah, I think this is Canetti's last fight in the UFC. I don't know what his contract looks like, but I don't think he's the next. I don't think he's the Argentinian smiling Sam Alvey type, to stick around for 10 more losses. I think he's out because I think the Contender Series season is right around the corner, or I don't know what the hell that looks like. But I'm pretty sure they're going to bring a new talent for bantamweight at some point. And Canetti's not looking too good with his 3 losses, and then I think he's going to definitely lose here. And Montinho, he's his popularity, explosion after the Krusty the Clown fight exploded, and so I think he's not a superstar, but I think he's going to become a very going forward a very popular fighter because of that. Thanks to Krusty's what do you call it? Not hype. What the fuck is the word I'm looking for? His social presence or whatever. Anyway, not to go too deep into this. There's not much more I can say or I want to say about this, but I'll take Montinho by second round spinning head kick.
Before we break down the main card, make sure you like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, follow us on the Discord. I think there's more people joining the Discord. I really enjoy having those conversations and just the overall community of the Discord. The one question was asked of me by Tatooine Dream, Jose, and I think you're more better suited to answer this because you live in LA and you have more access to this. But I was asked what my favorite fast food restaurants were, and I think you have the better, I guess, take on this. If you want to quickly tell us what your favorite fast food restaurants are.
Oh, geez. Oh, man, I should have prepared for this. I would have done some research.
You got this. I know In-N-Out. Of course, In-N-Out is fantastic, but I don't live near In-N-Out anymore, so.
I think In-N-Out isn't fair because, for any listeners outside of California or the U.S., they're not going to know what, that have not had In-N-Out. It's hard to describe just how good it is. So I think that's not fair. Because when I think fast food, I think of like Jack in the Box or McDonald's or shit like that. In-N-Out isn't really that fast because if you've ever gone to an In-N-Out here in LA, you're waiting an hour for a goddamn cheeseburger because it's always packed.
Line, yeah.
Because it's mostly packed, unless you get lucky and get there right when they open at 10:30, which I have. And then you have the restaurant to yourself almost, which is nice. But yes, In-N-Out is among my favorites. funny thing, as of late, there's a place called George's Burger Shack. It's on Cesar Chavez Avenue. It's like a mom and pop shop. It's like one of those places that has those old school boards with kind of the magnetic lettering.
Hmm.
They have a fantastic double bacon cheeseburger, and I ordered the chili cheese fries. Dude, that thing was like a giant tray, enough for 3 people, and I barely made a scratch on that thing. I was like, holy shit, that's a lot of chili cheese fries. That's pretty good.
Oh, and
But
you were gonna say that thing about Blonde Brunson. Let's not forget that. Moving on
oh
to
yeah, yeah. Blonde. Well, I saw a thing on Blonde Brunson's Instagram where he's selling free Kane T-shirts, free Kane Velasquez T-shirts. I've seen others that have just free Kane T-shirts, and those don't appeal to me too much because if John Jones is in the neighborhood and he sees free Kane on your shirt, he's gonna come after you. So free Kane Velasquez T-shirts. I think I'm gonna get like maybe one or two. I think I saw one in black as well, black with white lettering. Because the white, excuse me, the white T-shirts, at least for me, they're like a mustard and hot sauce magnets. So I'm pretty sure I'll stain it in no time. Um, yeah. But as far as well, I don't think this counts as fast food. But I just have to say, Lou Malnati's in Chicago. Holy crap, man! I keep dreaming about going back there,
yeah,
just
dude.
eating some of that pizza, and maybe this time getting a salad as well. I don't think we got a salad last time, but I think I'd like to add a salad this time just to say I ate a little healthier.
Let's move on now to the main card. Very short notice bout at lightweight. At least I think it's light. Yeah, it's still lightweight because it's so short notice. I have no idea what Terrence McKinney's weight's going to be like. But Drew Dober versus Terrence McKinney, short notice on lightweight. Terrence McKinney, what a big bald bastard, man. He's coming in after decimating Faraz ZM, and now he's fighting Drew Dober, taking the place of Ricky Glenn. I don't like this matchup, not because it's not good. It's just like, shit, I don't want to see either of these guys really lose. Drew Dober, he's got a soft spot. I got a soft spot for him because of, I'll tell you the story about Drew Dober. I went to an event where he was fighting, and I sat next to his opponent's cousins. He's like, "Oh, my cousin's fighting next," and I'm like, "Who's he fighting?" "Oh, this guy from Drew Dober." I'm like, "Oh," and I think the cousin was like, I don't want to really say, I don't want to like put it out there, but it happened, and he finished the guy. So the family's like, "Yeah, my guy's really good. He's really good. He trains with Brian Ortega." I'm like, "Oh, sweet. Is Brian here?" "Yeah, Brian's over there." I'm like, "Oh, fuck, that's cool." And then Drew Dober beats the absolute piss out of this guy, and his family's just like, "No, get up, get up." I want to say what they said, but I can't. I don't want to like, put him out there, but at the end of the night, like they're texting him and I'm like, "Oh, how's your cousin?" Like, "Oh, he's in the hospital right now." I'm like, Drew Dober fucks people up sometimes. And Terrence McKinney, we know what he's capable of. We know he's a very good grappler. A lot of people were really counting out his grappling against Faraz EM, and it like completely backfired on them. He was able to get that. I don't even know if it was a takedown. It was just like a stumble. He got his back, and he just choked him out. Not even completely at the right angle. He's got a legendary squeeze training with Chiesa and all. It's a tough little matchup, man. I think Terrence McKinney. I didn't even read the odds. I'm sorry. The odds have it in favor of Drew Dober minus 240. Come back on McKinney is a plus 205. I'm not certain how right those odds are, but if they are right, Terrence McKinney at plus money, being the bigger guy, longer reach. I think there's too much value on McKinney there. It makes me wonder. Drew Dober is a tough guy. I don't want to see him lose. The guy hits incredibly hard. He's a dog in there. He's got really decent takedown defense, but that is his weakness, really the grappling. If Terrence McKinney takes it to the ground, if he's smart, I think he will be smart. He can completely grapple fuck Drew Dober and potentially even submit him second round or so. It pains me to go against Drew Dober because like he's one of these guys like the Carlos Condits of the world that they may not have the best record, but they're just so entertaining to watch just the way they fight. He has incredibly huge legs, and I'm always mesmerized. I'm like, this dude has some fucking freakishly large calves, and like they can do some damage. I have to go with McKinney. I think he's right when he says it's his time. It's just you kind of doubt the guy a little bit, but I think he's incredibly skilled. And I think he uses his wrestling in this fight because if he allows Drew Dober to land on him, I think he's going to feel it. He won't like it. Not to say that he's going to like crumble, but he's just not going to like try to mess with that. He's going to use his wrestling. Even on the feet, I think it's a lot closer. Drew Dober, I don't think he's really ever been knocked out. I can't comment fully on that, but he's got a pretty epic chin. He's got a Chad Giga chin on himself. So it's going to be fun. If those odds are correct, I have to take a shot on Terrence McKinney. So I'll go with McKinney by a second round submission. But I cannot say that I'm not rooting for Drew Dober to get the upset. I think it should be that McKinney is the favorite and Dober is the underdog. But I think honestly, the respect on Drew Dober, I can allow that. So I'll still go with McKinney by submission.
I'm taking Drew Dober here. Just because I flipped the coin. And I'm like, you know what? Why not? I mean, he's lost to Riddell and the new GOAT, Makhachev, in the past year. Yeah, actually, literally the past year, 3-6. Man, the past 12 months have been kind of rough. And Terrence McKinney, yeah, sure, he's a little bit younger, might be a little bit more explosive. But he's, I think he's maybe due to hit that, what would you call it? Like professional speed bump. You know, it's like when you get to the UFC, there are guys who are like, oh man, this guy's, gonna be the next GSP or he's gonna be the next something or other. And they say that because they have like 1, 2 good fights, but then it's like the brakes are automatically slammed on their career because they hit that kind of wall where they're like, oh, this is where they're really at. It's like the stock market correcting itself. And I think this might be the fight. This might be that fight for McKinney, because I'm not counting Drew Dober out. So I'll take Drew Dober here. I'll take him by second round TKO. I think he's gonna turn his sort of bad 12 months around and surprise Terrence McKinney and have him go back to the drawing board, because that's what that's sometimes what happens with these up and coming contenders.
I mean, the odds say that. The odds say that Drew Dober is going to put on a pretty decent performance and beat up Terrence McKinney. I just think those odds are ridiculous, even on short notice, man. Like, I don't think they should be that close. I think one of the few times that I've ever seen the short notice fighter coming in and being a huge favorite over the existing fighter that was going to fight was Christos Giagos versus Carlton Minus. I'm like, what a disrespect on Carlton Minus. And not necessarily Carlton Minus never belonged in the UFC, but I think about that a lot. I'm like, how does that happen? How does the guy who was scheduled to fight become a huge underdog against a guy who took the fight basically off of the couch or so? But interesting. But let's move on to the next bout at light heavyweight. Khalil Rountree versus Carl Roberson. And this is interesting because Roberson's moving back up to light heavyweight after, having a really rough time at middleweight. Like, he lost to guys by like Vittori and Brendan Allen. He surprisingly beat Roman Kopylov, and he beat Wellington Turman. Interesting bout. This is literally a coin flip fight for me as well. The odds kind of signify that as well. Minus 120 for Roundtree. Comeback on Roberson is about a plus 100. We've seen what Khalil Roundtree can do. The dude hits hard. He's that's really all I can say. He hits really fucking hard. The ass whooping that he gave to Eric Anders is always on people's minds. I'm like, if he performs like that, he's a world beater, right? But he obviously has the issue of the takedown. Ion Cutelaba took him down, beat his ass. And then Marcin Prachnio, that was a real weird performance because he's winning that fight, but he's not being active enough. And Prachnio essentially stole the fight from him. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, he's very explosive. The fight with Modestus, that was a hard fight to watch again. And he completely had zero respect for Modestus Bukauskas. And I understand that Modestus is a tall guy. If you bum rush him, he has to move back because that's his natural, I guess, state. He's moving backwards. And that's what he did to him. He put a ton of pressure on Modestus in the first round. And then the second round came, and the same old Khalil Rountree came. He's very tentative. He wasn't throwing a whole ton of heat. He's just not very active. And Modestus was kind of inching his way back into that fight, potentially even on his way to win a decision against Rountree, which happens a lot. And then that horrific leg injury happened when, Rountree threw that essential stomp. And, it's a legal technique, but it's like, damn, dude, chill. And I've always been kind of a fan of Rountree, like as a fighter, of course, as a person, he seems like a cool dude. Roberson, on the other hand, he is also a kickboxer, a glory level kickboxer. And despite him having issues, facing grapplers, he himself, I think, has been training a lot of his grappling. And you can kind of see that. Like, I know he got a submission win over Kopylov. That was his last win. Like, he understands that he has to kind of be a mixed martial artist, not necessarily just a kickboxer. And I think his kickboxing solid, which I think it negates itself in this matchup. The power going to Khalil Rountree and just the more activity and the cleaner striking from Roberson. 50-50 matchup, in my opinion. I cannot guarantee this, but I think Carl Roberson's going to shoot for a takedown. And I think it would be wise for him to do so because that is the path of least resistance. And I think Roberson has an edge on the feet, not on the feet, I'm sorry, on the ground, just because although he lost by heel hook against Brendan Allen, being a stupid move against Brendan Allen that you basically present your leg to him, he actually was going for his own leg lock. And that kind of tells me that, like, hey, I'm comfortable on the ground enough to go for this submission or maybe even try to get a sweep, but he did everything wrong. But the fact that he was willing to do that kind of tells me this dude is putting on the gi in training. So I will go with Roberson on this one. I think his chin's going to be better at a light heavyweight. He just has to withstand the barrage from Rountree, and Rountree will do what he typically does, and he slows down. He doesn't produce a whole ton of output. I think he's going to be able to really avoid the leg kicks from Rountree by, checking them correctly. It's so damn close, though. I wouldn't blame anyone for going either way. I would stay away from it completely. This is like a fade. It's going to ruin your parlay if you touch it at all. But I'll go with Roberson. If you take a shot on him at plus 100, I think there's a chance he wins this one by a decision, possibly even crazy enough a submission. But I'll go with Roberson by a decision.
Yeah, I'm actually going with Khalil Rountree. I think he is going to make his fight, his winning streak. He's going to move it up to 2. I think he's got. I think he's got the better stand up. And funny enough, when he's, how do I put it? Not a significant underdog, when he's like kind of a like small to medium-ish underdog, he actually does pretty well, I think. Except for, let's see, in his fights with Cutelaba and Johnny Walker, but that's back when Johnny Walker was like the Brazilian dynamic, John Jones or whatever, heir to the throne. He is pretty tough. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can't even back up why the hell I'm going with Rountree, but it's just one. It's just one of those things where I'm like, it's to me, it just seems like it's his. He's going to continue his streak. He beat Kauskas, sure. He lost to Prach Neo, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things where I just don't see Carl Roberson beating him. I might be wrong, but that's just, yeah, man. I just see Rountree, maybe because it's at 205, you know. Um, but yeah, I just think Rountree's going to take it. I think he's going to not outclass him, but just out.
Like outpower him essentially.
Yeah, yeah, I would say outpower him and maybe have more volume. You know,
I wouldn't trust that at
uh,
all, dude. I would not trust Roundtree to have the more volume.
I'm not saying he's gonna outstrike him like 200 to 50 or something, but I think he's just gonna have more, and it might just be 10 more strikes or 5 more strikes, but I think he's gonna have more volume on Roberson, and probably more significant strikes as well. So yeah, so I'll go with Roundtree by. Wait, what did I say? Oh, I guess I haven't said. I'll go with Roundtree by second round head kick KO.
Moving on to a very interesting matchup at featherweight, Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres versus Super Sodiq Yusiff. And currently the odds have it in favor of Yusiff minus 230. Come back on Caceres as a plus 190. This one, I spent quite a bit of time breaking down tape on these two. Caceres, as of late, man, this guy has been on fire. He's beaten some pretty good competition and completely ruined one of my parlays and one of my straight bets against what's his name? Sting. Can't remember his name. Sung Woo Choi. He's been doing the grappling circuit. He got a rear naked choke in Fury Pro Grappling against some dude, Eddie Torres. He beat Kevin Kroom, Austin Springer, Chase Hooper, Steven Peterson. Uh, Lost to Kron Gracie. I mean, after that loss to Kron Gracie, you can kind of see that his grappling just blew up. Like this dude's rear naked choke game is to be taken fucking seriously. The loss to not the loss, I'm sorry, the win over Sung Woo Choi was interesting. That's where I'm like, you fade Alex Caceres, right? Because he's kind of chinny. He doesn't necessarily beat certain level competition. And he got clipped, he got dropped, he got illegally kneed in the head. He came back and he won that fight. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like when you bet a guy and you're like just knock them out and you'll win, and then they make a mistake and they lose and you get kind of pissed off. It's one of those things like I didn't get mad at Alex Caceres because it's like, damn, you took my money from me. I respect that. Like the dude's just his grappling should be taken a lot more seriously. Sodiq Yusuff is one of these guys as well. He's very tough. His fight with Arnold Allen was very entertaining. He got hurt multiple times by Arnold Allen, which is like I couldn't even fathom it. I think I picked Sodiq to win that one, but I actually put some money on Arnold Allen. The fucking light just went out, the TigerBomb light, and I was surprised. I'm like, Jesus Christ, Arnold Allen might be the truth. But Sodiq is a power striker. He he's got great kickboxing, pretty solid takedown defense. His takedowns are themselves pretty interesting as well. Like he's pretty solid overall. What else? He overcame that adversity with Arnold Allen. Like he got dropped twice in that fight, pretty bad. Like he got hit with the left hand that dropped him. He came back and recovered very well, meaning that his cardio is on point. He got hit in the second round with a high kick that wobbled him bad, and he was able to recover. Like he instinctively shot for a takedown. I'm like, this guy is good. It's just that he was getting completely outclassed by Arnold Allen. The third round, surprisingly, he ended up winning that third round. And the thing about Sodiq is that I think he loads too much with his strikes, but if he connects on you, he will knock you out. And there is one thing that I've noticed about Sadiq is that he does have issues with the southpaws. Alex Caceres is a southpaw. And for example, he was having issues with Mowgli Benitez up until he knocked him out completely cold. He was also having issues with obviously Arnold Allen, who is a southpaw. And being that southpaw, he's completely discombobulated him. It seems like he's just not completely used to it. And although he won his fight against Andre Feely, that third round when Feely switched stances to southpaw, it kind of cemented, like, yeah, he's not very comfortable fighting these southpaws. Fili ended up winning that third round, and it just, you can tell that he wasn't comfortable. Sadiq was with the southpaws, and now he's fighting another southpaw in Alex Caceras with really good movement, really good jujitsu. He's a bit chinny, as I mentioned. He does leave his chin exposed a lot. He's pretty fucking tough too, Alex Caceres. I think there's a lot of value on Caceres to win this one because he's a veteran of the game. As long as he doesn't get knocked out, I think he wins this fight by a decision, just kind of using his movement, his grappling, and stifling Sadiq Yusiff. I don't trust him not to get knocked out, though. I will still go with Yusiff to win. I think he ends up catching Alex Caceres. I think Yusiff took a good amount of time. It's been 10 months since he lost to Arnold Allen, where he got rocked pretty bad. He should have recovered well. I know he didn't get knocked out, but he got hit. He essentially got knocked out twice in that fight, and he needed some time to recover. I think if he doesn't load too much on his strikes, I think he ends up catching Caceres. Although Mowgli was having success with Caceres, that power eventually caught up to him. And knowing that Caceres has been knocked out and dropped multiple times, I think Sadiq is going to exploit that. Him having an issue with southpaws or not, I think that power will be the deciding factor here. And I think Yusiff, I don't think Caceres is going to submit Yusiff. I think he's just too strong and too crafty. It's more so, I think Caceres could just stay on the outside for 2 rounds and kind of pick him apart a little bit. But knowing Yusiff and his determination to win, this guy's got a really solid head on his shoulders. I think he's going to come in the third round if it gets to that point, and he's just going to unload and eventually catch Caceres. I will say that Yusiff wins this one by it should be second round, in my opinion. I think he knocks him out in the second round because he might have issues in that first. But knowing Yusiff and just his willingness to go forward and create the traps, as long as he doesn't present that hand that he's loading up too much, I should say, I think he eventually clips Caceres and finishes him on the ground. But I'll go with Yusiff to win by a second round TKO. But goddamn, I will say Alex Caceres is really live here. I think so. I think I might be onto something about those southpaws, but we'll see. We'll see if he's cleaned that up. I think he's had enough time, Yusiff, that is, to kind of clean up that uncomfortable nature that he has with southpaws. But I'll still go with him by second round TKO.
I'm actually going with Caceres here, and I'm going with him by second round rear naked choke. I think even though he did beat Steven Peterson prior to that, I think his, at least at the very least when I noticed him, sort of his resurgence was against Chase Hooper. I think I placed a little bit too much stock in Chase Hooper, and I thought, him, at least at the time, Chase Hooper's thing was, he's like, oh, I'm Ben Askren's son, so I'm gonna tell people that so that they can look at me and laugh. And he actually went to train with Ben Askren, but I guess that worked out.
He became a worse fighter.
All for shit, yeah. Then he became, then people started believing, like, oh, I guess he is Ben Askren's son because he looked like shit. And so the other thing that actually helped Caceres was a canceled fight against Giga Chikadze between Chase Hooper and Austin Springer, because that would have fucked him up pretty bad.
Yeah, that would have really derailed him.
Yeah, that would have, I think, messed his whole mojo up. So I think Sadiq Yusiff is in for a fight. If he thinks he's going to get it easy with Caceres, I think the way I'm seeing Caceres' sort of career resurgence or surgence or whatever you want to call it, is very similar to, I think, like Rafael dos Anjos, in that he had like kind of a below average start to his career, but then he turned it around, and then he got the UFC championship, and he's been he's been sort of a contender ever since. And that's how I see, Caceres' kind of new career, surgence, not resurgence, but surgence, to where, he's going to get into, his 20. I think he's going to get the win here. I think he's going to get his 20th win. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to add other than, just having a gut feeling about Caceres. That's it. It's my gut.
So you're thinking Bruce Leroy is going to defeat Shonuff Sodiq Yusuff?
Pretty much, yeah.
Damn.
He's gonna catch that bullet with his butt, not his teeth. Cause he's gonna like turn around. He's gonna like do one of those flips, and he's like, oh shit, caught it between the cheeks. Makes no sense, but I guess it makes sense in my mind because he's rolling away from him. But anyway, never mind.
All right, let's move on to a Just Bleed highlight fight of the night at middleweight. Bruno Silva versus Alex Pereira. I'm like so excited for this fucking fight. Like last week I fucked myself by taking the under, or that the fight wouldn't go the distance between Rodriguez and Petrosian. I might fall into that trap again here. I'm like, like I'm a smart guy. I know how to bet. Like I know I make some mistakes sometimes, but like when you're at the betting window or at the kiosk in my area, I have a little fucking digital kiosk. You put in your money and you put in your bets. When you see the money on like will not go the distance, you just go fucking berserk. Like put it all on that. Put it all. It's gonna win. Like I don't care. Like fuck it. Like you just go nuts when you're in the casino. You smell the cigarette smoke in the air. You see a 47-year-old woman walking by in short shorts asking you if you want a drink. Like it just hypnotizes you. And I think I'm gonna try not to like blow all my wad on that, because this fight, God, if it goes the distance, it's gonna break my heart. But the odds currently have it in favor of oh man, Alex Pereira minus 170. Comeback on Bruno Silva is plus 150. I don't really want to break this down the normal way. I told my girlfriend yesterday, I'm like, who would you pick between these two guys? There's a guy who's 22-6, basically all knockouts in the UFC, and a guy who is 4-1, who within his last 5 fights he's been submitted, and then he got knockout. Who would you pick? She's like, well, obviously the guy who is 22-6. I'm like, no. You go with the guy who is 4-1, because I'm not even going to get into it. But Pereira's knocking Bruno Silva out. I mean, both of these guys have the ability to knock each other out. I think Bruno Silva, the dude is if I remember my basic review of him when he first came into the UFC, he's considered like a black belt in Muay Thai. Alex Pereira is a fucking destroyer in kickboxing. Do I need to bring up the Izzy knockouts? I think everyone knows by now. He's training with Glover Teixeira. I call him left hook Perry for a reason, because that left hook that he landed on Thomas Powell, and I still tell people this, if you haven't seen that fight in the LFA where he knocked out Thomas Powell, go to Fight Pass, look up that event, watch that fight. He knocks him out with the absolutely picture perfect. Like you could formulate an equation at how perfect that left hook was. He knocks this dude out, and he's on the ground for a long period of time. So much so that I'm thinking this is some sort of bullshit angle. They're trying to hype up Alex Pereira. They probably told Thomas Powell that if you get knocked out, don't move. That way it looks like he hits you really hard. At a certain point, Thomas Powell wasn't moving, and I'm like, okay, this isn't funny anymore. Get up, Thomas Powell. It lasted a long time. He eventually gets up, and he's fine. Well, he lost and he got knocked out, but I'm like, Jesus, this guy hits incredibly hard. The dude is just an absolute hard hitter compared to the striking of Bruno Silva. He hits hard, but he's more of a clubbing type of character. Pereira has like ungodly amounts of power in his fists and his knees and his elbows, everything. He's the much better striker. I don't know if Bruno Silva is going to shoot for a takedown or not. And I don't think it's going to matter. Him training with the champ Glover Teixeira, perfect guy to help him out in this transition to MMA. This will not go the distance. If it does go the distance, I'll cut my nuts off. God, I hope it doesn't go the distance. Or should I say, that's an excuse for me to like transition and be like, well, I guess I have to now. But damn, like Bruno Silva, like I hate that he has to get that ass whooping because he's cashed out every single time. But the one tell that made me know for sure he's going to get knocked out is that his fight with Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright was putting it on him, and then he just ended up catching Jordan Wright. If Jordan Wright's beating your ass for a couple seconds, you're not going to beat a guy like Alex Pereira, who's so good at distance management, so good with his counter, so good with defense. Bruno Silva's going to have to rush in there to get him, and I think he's going to meet a knee, being that he's 6'4" and an 80-inch reach compared to 6 foot and 74-inch reach for Bruno Silva. That means that I've been talking about this for too long. Pereira first round knockout.
I think Silva's going to put up more of a fight, and he's going to get knocked out in the second round. I think the first round is going to be a little bit more feeling out process. And then in the second round, he's going to go balls to the wall and just knock him out with probably a flying head kick. So I'll take Pereira by flying head kick in the second round. I think this event is going to be head kick knockout heavy.
I'm telling you, when I'm thinking about this fight, like I'm going to be so giddy. I cannot wait for this fight. But moving on to the co-main event at bantamweight, Marlon Moraes versus Song the Kung Fu Monkey Yadong. And currently the odds have it in favor. I think we all know it's going to be Song Yadong. Song Yadong minus 245. Come back on Marlon Moraes is a plus 205. And this is interesting because, obviously Marlon Moraes is on a 3-fight losing streak, all by knockout. And he's fighting a young, up-and-coming fighter with incredible dynamite in that right hand. Is it that easy? I don't think it's that easy because, maybe I have a soft spot for Marlon Moraes. Maybe I'm too nice for this game when I'm looking at a guy who's been knocked out 3 times in a row and I'm kind of rooting for him to get back on track. Or maybe I'm just being a little too cautious, but I think Marlon Moraes might be live here. And laugh all you want at plus 205. He's fighting a much less experienced guy. And, it sucks to say Marlon is the much better fighter here. He's got the better striking, the better grappling. It's just that he has 2 things that fuck him up, and that's his cardio and his chin. And they go hand by hand. Like when he gasses out, his chin just becomes incredibly weak, and he just doesn't have that recovery anymore. And he's training out of Tiger Muay Thai, and will that help him? I don't think it's going to help him too much. I think even if he didn't go train at Tiger Muay Thai, it wouldn't really be beneficial for him because he's still just a better fighter. If he's training his defense, I think that's going to help him out here. But if think about it, like what Marlon Moraes was able to do, he's still 33 years old. The way he dismantled these guys in the past before he ran into Cejudo and he just completely broke him down. He was fucking Cejudo up, leg kicks. He just gasses out. This being a 3-round fight against Song Yadong, who's not very active. He doesn't throw a ton, but the boy can crack, man. He's got dynamite in that right hand. He gets out volumed by the faster guys. Like, what was it? His name? Kyler Phillips was completely able to beat him to the punch. Marlon Moraes is the faster guy here, faster muscle fibers as well. He's going to be able to throw kicks. He's going to be able to really throw those fast hands against Song Yadong. That fight with Merab, I never thought in my life I'd see a 10-8 round that went in both people's favor. He 10-8s Merab, and then Merab comes back and 10-8s him, and I'm like, what the fuck? I think are you asleep, dude?
Sorry, man, I slipped away for a second.
Am I that boring? Well, I can't edit that out. But I think Marlon's live here. I think he's a tough guy. You got me all discombobulated. I just said Marlon's a tough guy. Marlon has a way to win this fight. Song Yadong, I think he's going to eventually catch him. I think Song being the stronger, the stronger willed guy in there, he's going to eventually catch Marlon. And it sucks to think that because I think Marlon has a chance to win if he grapples here. he could potentially even get a submission. He is fighting a lesser competition here, but I think Song still catches him. I wouldn't blame anyone for putting a bit of money on Marlon, especially at those odds. I might even put maybe a $10 bet on there just to get 20 or so back. But I'll go with Song Yadong. I think he will eventually catch Marlon Moraes, and he will knock him out. And Marlon, I don't know if he will retire or he'll go fight somewhere else, but he can't be fighting these guys with dynamite in their hands. But yeah, I'll go with Song Yadong by a second round knockout.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I lost you a second.
Yeah, I was accidentally changing tabs. And while changing tabs, I accidentally closed out this particular tab. But here, well, I was going to say, so the two things, well, you said Marlon Moraes has two weaknesses, but you failed to mention his voice pitch. His it's funny when I a lot of fighters, when they kia or something, it's pretty predominant. But when Marlon kias, it's more like what I picture is a Hasbullah, kiaing. And so he's if anything, it's funny now whenever I hear Marlon Moraes any interviews or anything, I think like, oh man, this guy, the funniest interview would be this guy facing off or having some sort of back and forth with Hasbullah, if Hasbullah spoke broken English. But other than that, yeah, man, I think Marlon has had a pretty what do you call it? Pretty bad. I wouldn't call it stroke. It's like a pretty bad streak.
Maybe.
Pretty. Well, it's a pretty bad streak, because I think that fight against Aldo, he definitely lost. So it's been five. It's been 5 fights, and if anything, I think that fight that got canceled against Peter Yan also kind of worked in his what do you call it?
In his
favor, because I think that would have fucking put him over the edge. I mean, even though losing against Sanhagen, Font, and then Vlashvili, that fucking sucked for him. But
he had that Dvalishvili fight in the bag too. It's just that dude, like looking back at that fight, his counters were so fucking good. He just gassed himself out, and then you don't do that against Merab, and fuck, like thank God, thank Keith Peterson for not stopping that fucking fight, because I absolutely needed Merab to cash out. So God bless that man. Smoke all the cigarettes he weed. Cigarettes and alcohol.
Yeah, man, he's yeah. I mean, this would be kind of a big win for Song Yadong. At least having I wouldn't consider Moraes a big name, but it would be, I guess, maybe one of the more known names in the division.
He'll be beating a former champion, World Series of Fighting champ. So yeah, it's a pretty big step up.
Well, I mean, he did. Yeah, I guess. I guess that would kind of count. But he definitely, he's definitely a step up in competition. Now, Song's been with the UFC for 3, 4, 5, close, four some odd years, almost 5 years. And yeah, this is definitely like the biggest, I think, step up in competition so far. I mean, there are some guys who have had almost, actually, no, he did fight Alejandro Perez, who has 20 some odd fights. But Marlon Moraes has been fighting, some pretty, a lot of pretty well-known guys. So, yeah, this is definitely like the biggest, I think this is going to be another one of those, where where Yadong bit off a little bit more than you can chew, because Moraes is like, wait, should we call it one round Moraes or something? One round. Basically, he's going to fight, if he can get past the first round, I would say he has a really good shot of maybe getting the decision. But round one, Moraes is an absolute beast, man. He's a killer. So he's got to be on his toes if he can. I think at this point, Moraes has his back against the wall. He's already had 3 losses, and if he loses against Song Yadong, Song Yadong, I don't consider him. What do you call it? A
contender.
Yeah, not yet. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's lost so far. Moraes has lost against like all the top 10 contenders. But yeah, if he loses to Song Yadong, it's like, yeah, I think it's not gonna really look good. I don't know what his contract situation looks like. But he's I think as of right now he's like 1 foot out the door. So I think his back is against the wall. I think I'm gonna go with Moraes here to pull off the decision. I'm hope. Well, at least if I were him or his team, I would say, hey, we're not going to blow our load in the first round. We're going to, spread out the action in all 3 rounds.
Spread the butter, baby.
Pretty much, yeah. You're going to spread the cheeks in the butter.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's possible. It's very, I'm not counting out Marlon. I know a lot of people might be because of that chin. Because in this particular spot, I'm fading the chin of Marlon because I just don't trust it. It's just more so if he was able to take a shot, even if he gassed out, but he still had that he had a pretty solid chin. I would go with him to win because I think he's leaps and bounds above Song Yadong skill wise and just experience wise. But because I don't consider Song Yadong to be I don't think he's ever going to be fighting for a title. I just don't think so. I think there's too many guys out there that can beat his ass, and he has a lot of weaknesses as well. He doesn't throw a lot, and I don't think he's going to be able to withstand guys like Merab. So, yeah, Marlon, I think he's live, but I'm fading the chin, so that might end up biting me. I think you might be right. I think Marlon, if he paces himself, he can win this in the later rounds, finish or decision, but I cannot trust him.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, if the fight were only 2 rounds, then
2 minutes. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude, blast that fucking Marlon Moraes line.
Yeah, or if it were 3 1-minute rounds, and be like, holy shit, Marlon Moraes is the champion. Yeah, Minuteman Moraes. Yeah, so it's hard to say. I mean, this is, for all intents and purposes, Moraes' fight to lose. So
Yep.
It's up to him, whether he wants to have maybe 2 good rounds and then he can coast the 3rd round and maybe lose it or whatever. But yeah, so it's up to him.
So Moraes by decision for you?
Probably. I would say so. Split decision at this point, I'd say.
All right, moving on to the main event of the evening, Thiago Marreta Santos versus Magomed Ankalaev. Did you know that Magomed, I think he immigrated to the United States and he changed his name? He's now going by Magomed Ankalaev.
That's man.
I wanted to Photoshop a Make America Great Again hat on him, but I'm like, nah, I don't want to fucking do that. Too many softies. But anyways, Magomed Ankalaev, currently the odds on him are -460. Comeback on Santos is a +365. Don't have really much to say. This is one of these easy ones to break down. Thiago Santos, he's gotten old. Just like in that movie, Homeward Bound, with the dogs and the cats, and then the dogs end up coming back, and Shadow doesn't come back, and the kid's like, he was too old. He was just too old. And that's what's happening here with Marreta, man. He put on some great performances. He got a decision against Johnny Walker, which was baffling because Johnny Walker should have won that. Maheta, he's 38 years old, as I mentioned, and he's fighting a Ankalaev. Ankalaev is incredibly well-rounded, very patient, very good striking, hits hard. He had that one stumbling block, of course, against Paul Craig, but after that, completely he's just been completely on point. Being that it's a 5-round fight, I think he's just gonna pick Thiago on from the outside, pick him apart, and then I don't know if he'll finish him. I think he should. He hits incredibly hard, great kicks, great wrestling. I don't see how Thiago wins this one other than just catching Magomed, like rushing in. I don't think Magomed's gonna do that. I mean, literally, the last knockout that Thiago had was against John Blahovic when he came rushing in. And other than that, it was a pretty close fight. But that was 2 years ago, man. 2 years make a huge difference. Having knee replacement surgery as well, or whatever happened to his knees, I can't remember. Like, he blew it out, both of them against John Jones. And, Alexander Rakic was able to decision him. I think Magomed is just better than all these guys right now. I think I can speak for you in saying that you agree as well that he's going to win this fight, whether by decision or even finish. But I'll be blunt and I'll just go and say I think he's going to finish Thiago Santos in like the 4th round. I think he catches him after beating him up on the ground. On the feet, he catches him with a kick and finishes him off with ground and pound. And then we might be talking about possibly Magomed versus what's his name? Oh my God, Yuri, the winner of Yuri versus Glover.
Prochaska.
Yeah, Prochaska. That'd be an interesting fight. If Prochaska wins the fight and then we give it to Ankalaev for the title, that'd be fun to watch. But I've got Ankalaev 4th round TKO.
I'm actually taking Ankalaev 2nd round head kick KO. I think this is going to be the cherry on top of the head kick UFC card of the year. I'm not putting it past him because he's actually taller than Maheta, and Maheta's pretty damn tall. So for a Russian guy to come in and head kick Maheta, this is probably his worst nightmare, man. He's gonna he has that win against Walker, but I wouldn't consider that a win. I would consider that a loss. Not because I thought he lost, but just because of the sloppy way he fought. I think he's done. It's unfortunate because, it's John Jones. He just fucked up both his knees and
he dipped.
That's pretty much it for him. That was 2 some odd years ago. Yeah, man, because he was on a roll. He fucked up Kevin Holland, Eric Andrews, Jim Wanwa, Jan Blachowicz, and he was on his way. But yeah, then he had to take the John Jones fight. Pretty much fucked up his career. Yeah, so yeah, I think Maheta's done. He's just gonna, have however many more fights on his contract, fight it out. But as far as being a contender, this is Ankalaev's. What's it called? I don't know if this will necessarily propel him to the title. I think he might have one more fight, possibly. Before he can, for sure, like maybe against Rakic or
Jamal Hill.
Jamal Hill or Anthony
That'd be
Smith.
a fucking banger. Yeah, this light heavyweight's getting really, really fun.
Yeah, it's getting pretty competitive. Or even Jan Blachowicz.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Jan.
He's still out there, so there's still some guys to fight. So I think he's, even if he does win, because Santos is ranked below him at this point. Like I said, I think that's mainly the reason why this wouldn't be like a title contender fight for Ankalaev. He would have to probably win, beat one of those guys, numbers 5 through whatever. So he's looking at Blachowicz or Rakic or Smith or something, or wherever Smith is, like those guys, and that would be like, oh, okay, now Ankalaev's the guy. But here, I think he's gonna chop down Maheta.
And moving on, let's talk about parlays. I only have one parlay that I really like, and that's a 4-team parlay. I've got Basharat, Ankalaev, Pereira, and Azamat. And through my casino, that kind of gives me a plus 437 or 473. So if I were to put $40 on that, gets me a total of 229. That's the only one I really like with those guys. Those are the guys that I feel the most confident in. Basharat, I'm a little iffy on, but I think he ends up winning that. The other three guys, I think they're going to win. So if I take Basharat off, that gets me a plus 237. Still pretty good odds for me. Maybe I'll play around with some of the like underdog plays. Like I think I'm gonna put just a wee bit of money on Marlon because I think he can win that one. And I think that's really it. Other than, smashing the shit out of that Azamat line. Hopefully that doesn't bite me in the ass. But I'm going to try to be a little bit more patient with myself and just kind of think things through and not go overboard with the prop bets because I'm dying. Let me tell you, boy, I'm dying to smash that Alex Pereira round number 1, Alex Pereira round number 2, or just will not go the distance. I think that line's going to be ridiculous, like so bad that I can't touch it, like might be a minus 600 or so. But damn, that I gotta not do that again. I mean, dude, like I'm still pissed off at myself. I'm like, every single one of my fucking guys won for Islam versus Green, and I'm like, shit, I still lost money just because I was like a little too overconfident. But so far, those are my picks. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I would say put most of your money in straight bets, and then, or I would say do this: put 50% of your money in just like doing straight bets, and then use 25% for parlays, and then 25% for props. And then that way you don't get screwed too much in case you lose, in some parlays or props.
Yeah,
I know
I did that. Like I do that often. Like as much as I'm shitting on myself, like I'm not an idiot. It just for whatever fucking reason that week, I just felt like because I had not lost any money. I've only been making money this whole week. That's the only time I lost money. And I think I just got a little too overconfident with myself. I was like, okay, I know this is going to happen. And it didn't happen. I'm like, okay, I know this is going to happen. And it didn't happen. But everything else, like, had I just gone straight bets I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, honestly. I'm like, no, I don't want to do the straight bet on Josiane Nunes. It's minus 225. I'm like, or minus 250 even. And I'm just like, I was just being a little bitch. So I learned my lesson. I think I needed that. I think I needed to, because I was getting away with a lot of shit with my bets in the past. I was like doing a shit ton of props, and I'm like, I felt okay, prop bets are the way to go for me because they're being so good to me as of late that I should have done better. At least I'm being honest with you guys. I'm not going to tell you that I'm making a shit ton of money. I lost 7.5 units. Wasn't anything I wasn't willing to lose, but it's still like fuck, Not making money a week in 1 week is like shit. I've been seeing a lot of Twitter guys as well posting like, oh, I lost here and I lost there. And I'm thinking to myself, I think I got a little cocky. I'm like, I haven't lost any money yet. I'm like, serves me right.
Yeah, it's pretty. You get that tendency to be like,
get a little overboard.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I know that. I know those tendencies all too well. So yeah, I mean, as far as me, I would say this isn't the best card to go overboard with. I'd say go light on this card. Even though I think Ankalaev, at least for me, like if I were to go with anything, I would go with Ankalaev, Caceras. Let's see, Moutinho. And maybe Robertson. Maybe Maverick, but shit, this is women's MMA. So, but I think Maverick and Robertson are better. Or yeah, I want to say safe bets. It's women's MMA, so
Yeah,
I'd go
don't
light
have
on.
that.
Yeah, definitely go light on this card. I know that. I know the the feeling where you're like, you know what, I got a feeling about this one, so I'm gonna. I would say don't go too heavy on the parlays. here, I would say maybe do 10% of your total bankroll on, or whatever you're going to put on parlays, just to kind of satisfy that urge of, and then on the props, I'd say 10 to 20%, and the rest just do straight bets, just to keep the money
Dude.
rolling in. It's not going to be a lot because these odds are not all that great. So yeah, that's the other thing, man.
Next
Even
week, I'm gonna come back and tell you, like, I did it again.
oh man.
I mean, fuck it.
Well,
It is what it is.
at least we have that to look forward to next week.
Yeah. Yeah, if you were to go with those four people, Montino, Roberson, Pereira, and Magomed, it gives you a plus 568. So obviously $100 gives you 568 back. So total of 667, I guess, with some change or whatever. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. Just going light on this particular card. So far, the last few cards, I haven't really seen any possibility for major parlays, just straight bets and a couple. I mean, a slight amount of prop bets. Like I've seen some at the casino as of late. I went there yesterday and I saw some very obvious ways to like sneak in a bit of a prop, like over 1.5 for specific fights that I know aren't going to finish in the second round. Like I think RDA versus what's his face, Moicano. I think I chose that for one parlay. I went like over 1.5, over 1.5 for the Colby fight, and some other stuff on like a really long shot parlay. But again, I'm willing to lose that money. If it's gone, it's gone. But yeah, with these, I only see pretty much straight bets, other than like certain fights that I think aren't going to go the distance. Did I lose you again? Well, we lost Jose, but good way to end it. That's been Johnny and Jose with TigerBomb MMA. Make sure again to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, follow the Discord, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm changing it up this week just because I think all this shit talk on Oberg kind of came back and haunted me. So I'll say for this week, fuck Johnny.